What do we say about today's guest? Tom Kay, the founder of Finisterre. He really has a story or two to tell about business, adventure, and his seafaring journey. And no doubt Finisterre is one of, if not the most loved purpose-driven brand in the UK. And one that is nearly always mentioned at every job application in Enviro. We use it and it's always used by our clients as communications inspo. And it's just this case study for how business can stand for something bigger than the brand. And the brand, to me, I see it worn almost as a badge of allegiance to standing up for the planet. So I'm really looking forward to sitting down and chatting to Tom here in Bristol and just learning from one of the best. So without further ado, Tom Kay. Mr. Tom Kay, welcome.
Thank you.
You're in Enviro's hometown of Bristol.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, we're super stoked to have you here. We're doing a bit of an evening with you later on, one of Enviro's events, talking about the power of sustainable brands. It's going to be really cool. Yeah, ultimately Finisterre, really one of the jewels in the crown of UK sustainable brands. So super honoured to
thank you for
to having you on. On stage later on, talking to various people about various things.
Good to see how it goes actually. I'm quite looking forward to the format and quite like those open kind of flowing conversations, and it's all in there somewhere. It's going to come out in various forms. So looking forward to that.
So 20 years next year?
Yeah, 20 years next year. Finisterre has been since I founded it,
Making yourself feel a bit old, or? Yeah,
definitely. We were just having existential moments a minute ago, but definitely. It's one of those sort of things where, you embark on a journey that you really believe in, and I guess starting something out of nothing and all those that startup mentality. You don't really think about, you just keep on going, don't you? It's that startup mindset, which is like, I often just say to people at work that it's, exhausting and incredibly exciting at the same time. You're sort of reinventing, you're coming up with new ideas, you're constantly going forward on your purpose. So, and then suddenly 20 years has gone by. So when you stop and look back at it, it's a big moment, I suppose, and a big thing to look back on. Yeah.
Well, so go on, tell us what is it like if we look at that 20 years? What was things like in year 1? What was things like in year 5, year 10, year 15, and now? In fact, even before that, like before year 1, what was the journey? Tell us.
So the journey really was, so it's really born out of my love of the sea. Something my parents wanted to instill in my sister and I, bring us up, and that was something that they sort of fully thinking about how they like to bring their kids up, and so. From an early age, there's always, as much as possible in around the sea. And then it was all kinds of, it's boats, it's windsurfing. And then when I was about sort of 15, 16, sort of my formative years, it was sort of, people getting into music or team sports or bands or photography, whatever it is. Like surfing was a thing that, I really sort of found. And
were you always in Cornwall?
No. I was in Norfolk, I was in Bristol, I was in London, all over the place really. So, but it was always the sort of surfing that I was doing in this sort of climate. And it was, there's a real commitment to the sort of surfing you're doing over here. And, back then it was like getting your weather forecast from after, I was at University of Bristol here, so run back after lectures or miss lectures, whatever, get the news, get the weather. And then from that pressure map that you see behind Michael Fisher, whoever it was, you would then decide where to go for, you have your window for surf. So for me, it was a real commitment, a deeper understanding of sort of the surfing that I was doing. It was cold, it was dark, it was long journeys, but, on its day, it's as good as anywhere in the world. So that sort of cold water thing was, and I kind of felt that the experience was sort of, for that commitment, was like richer, more soulful, more romantic, more rugged, all these sort of things, and that was really the life I knew and loved, and basically focused my life on really. And then I was at Bristol Uni here, and then did biology, like a marine focus to it. And then ended up in London for a year and a half as a chartered surveyor, and it's sort of one of those sort of things where you're like, when something you really love is taken away from you really miss it. And for me, that was the sea, and it was surfing, and the things that are important to me. So I really started thinking about how I could build into into build something, create something that would kind of represent those passions, and you know, brands, a set of values, a set of ideas, a set of beliefs, whatever you want to call it. And so I decided that's what I'd do, and you call it Finisterre. It means end of the earth, Land's End. And it comes from the old shipping forecast area, Finisterre, you know, which is an amazing thing that people listen to who've never been to see in their life. They love listening to shipping forecast. And it's kind of romantic, but it's also very real. It's there to sort of save lives at sea. And it was about building, you know, really, really great product in a more sustainable way. You know, I was aware, you know, back then, I think, is, you know, early 2000s, all of the surf brands, were not making product that was really talking to me as a surfer over here. It was bikinis, it was board shorts, it was, you know, here was I in like February in the middle of Cornwall, whatever, like it's freezing cold. But, you know, it was a product that was sort of built around that sort of need, a need for product, a need for the brand, but also made in a better way, better fabrics, better manufacturing, better business, that sort of thing. And it was always going to be about, you know, a really good place, for great culture for people to work at, as well as, you know, having a sort of strong environmental ethos, for supporting surfers against sewage or marine conservation society it was back then. And that was the sort of, I suppose, the ingredients of the brand.
But when did all of that come in? Like, was that, you surely learned that over time?
Yeah.
Or was it there from the get-go?
No, it was there from the get-go, really.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you can look at, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a website, I think it's called Web Archive, where you can go back and you can look at all of the old websites. Yeah. You go back and look at our first ever website from 2003. It takes up about like a third of the page of a computer. But you can see there, and I laid down those foundations, a commitment to product, environment, to people. It was all, and I can remember, you know, maybe a bit extreme, but I was obsessed with the weather, and I used to go and, you know, I was a real weather geek and I loved it, looking at the charts and all that sort of thing and where the swell was going to be good. And I went back to the Met Office in Bracknell. Went there, and and you could just, in those days, you could just walk in. I was like, hey, can I look at some weather maps? And I went in, and they pulled all these, like, you know, slightly geeky weather guys, obviously, you can imagine. They said, yeah, sure, let me in. No security, whatever, let me in. And I looked through over like 25 years of weather maps to find the perfect pressure chart for surf on the West Coast. And that was my first advert that I ran. And the whole sort of thing was, if you understood this, the brand, what this meant, this is the brand for you. So I gave that out. And so it was all about, so yeah, to answer your question, it was always there at the start. There's this, you know, sustainability, doing things differently, you know, challenging what's gone before, and, you know, I was always big on commitment, I suppose, as a sort of trait as a brand. And yeah, it was a 3-page website. I lived above the surf shop in St Agnes, or this old surf shop in St Agnes, and you can still see the original sticker that's stuck on the window. I leant out and whacked it on there, and I met the first product was a fleece. It was windproof, waterproof, breathable, and it was like, back then it's like nothing that anyone ever seen before, you know, made in Devon. It was £100. That was really expensive for a fleece back then. So we're constantly having to kind of tell people about, you know, the sort of value propositions for better product and stuff like that. But it was a good price for what it was. And you still see that product around now today, which is like, obviously design's moved on since then. I wasn't a designer or businessman, so like, it's you know, it's perfectly okay. But I'm glad to say that the kind of the aesthetics moved on since then, and that's how it began. And so I guess the ideas and the brand ethos and the values and the beliefs and what we were going to stand for has always been there since day one. But, you know, to bring them to life, you know, that does take time and evolve, and, you know, you have to work hard at, and stick to as well. What
was the moment that you were like, oh yeah, this is going to work, this business is going to work?
Yeah, I often get asked that question. I don't think there's ever, even now, there's not like moments when you think this is going to work. There's like milestones along the journey, or like little, you know, gates along the journey that you go through that you kind of give you a bit of excitement and energy and stuff. And I always talk about this this really good like diagram. I might have talked about it before, about it's by like a business psychologist. It's called the emotional journey of doing anything really good. And it's like basically starts with, oh, this is a really good idea, it's amazing. And then you kind of go, oh, it's harder than I thought. And you start going down a hill, oh my God, this is really difficult. And then you get in this thing called swamp of despair, where you're like, you know, what the fuck am I doing? How, you know, how am I going to get out of here? But you keep on going, and then you kind of come to the other side. Oh, this might work. Oh, this is the best thing ever. Oh, you know, so, and you constantly, and then the theory is, if you've been in the swamp, you can build a bridge across it to help other people across it. Yeah. So it's about this resilience. That's a massively important trait, you know, with entrepreneurial sort of activity, I think, is resilience and grit. And so, so you're constantly on this sort of cycle of, like, you know, really great highs and really tough times, and that never goes away, even now. So you have, like, making our first fleece was, you know, getting our first write-up, you know, a beautiful product made for cold surfers in Cornwall, you know, in a little good gear guide in the whatever it was, the Times, it was some magazine or some newspaper. And, you know, back then, it was just me, and my sister helped out as well at the start, but you're phoning the journalists, you're hustling, you're doing all that sort of thing. So you're doing everything. And then you get an order, you get like a few orders a day, and that, you know, that 200 quid a day. So, and, you know, those are big moments, and they're like, they're little highs that kind of keep you going along the journeys. Then it's your first employees, your first space. 2008 won the Observer Ethical Business Award, which is quite a big deal, because from, you know, that publication to get that accolade for us as who were as a business down there, you know, having done it for 5 years was a big thing. And then, you know, it's other awards since then. It's Pure Joining. It's become B Corp certified. It's our first wetsuits. It's whatever, you know. There's many little milestones on the way. And I guess my learn is that they never, you know. You always can have these highs, it's great. There's always tough, you know, there's always tough times that may surely be around the corner. So you've got to really celebrate the milestones as well as kind of progress and move forward. You know, you don't want to be going so fast to the horizon that you miss the moments. And life changes, and then that moment is gone. You know, so it's it's important to do that. So there's probably a bit of vague answer, but many milestones in the way, and I think that kind of resilience and keeping going to the next one is important.
Yeah, it's so interesting because in the journey of Enviral, we won the Met Office really early as a client, and that was like the moment for us. Massive. It was so cool. But going down to Exeter, going to the HQ, you know, the technology behind weather is just wild.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
But one of the coolest things that I think we've ever done in terms of work is go down to their archive. Yeah. Because, you know, like every single year we've got messages of it's, the hottest July since records began. Or, you know, the most amount of rainfall in a day in the UK. In different times of the year, and since records began, they were the records.
I know.
That archive is the records. That is literally in one room, complete visibility on what the last few hundred years have looked like. And it's just wild.
Yeah, it's amazing. I don't know that it must be one of the oldest sort of places like that in the world, because you know, on this climate and all our shipping heritage and, you know, maritime heritage, it was such an important, like the RNLI is 200 years old. A lot of those things are sort of roughly that old or a bit older, and, you know, the importance of that as a service, you know, is shipping forecast, whatever, is super interesting and, you know, steeped in history and, you know, all that kind of, you know, stuff that goes with it.
Yeah. Well, so I guess what I heard from that is authenticity. That's really the core of this. And to me, that thread runs consistently through the brand, whether that's, you know, the kind of traditional Cornish knit in your clothing patterns to working with, you know, RNLI. I'm really interested that kind of seafaring romantic feel goes so deep. Mm-hmm. But I'm totally interested to hear your view on bigger brands getting involved at some level with this purpose, which doesn't necessarily feel as authentic or as natural. Yeah. I mean, Carlsberg's project with Project Seagrass comes to mind. You know, on one side, a huge organization doing a really good thing, which is great for marine areas. But on the other side of things, not so authentic. Where do you kind of sit on that scale?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting question. We talk about quite a lot, and I'm often on these panels, and I kind of feel really lucky that we've had that. Well, not lucky, because, you know, I've worked super hard to take the business to where it is today. And it's been many challenges along the way, including nearly happening many times. Do you know what I mean? Never sort of making it. So but I suppose in terms of what I believed it was important for brands has been at the start of it since day one. And so that's in there, it's on the walls, it's around the place, pinned up above their desk, whatever it is. So it's kind of ingrained in who we are. And I'm super lucky, joined by a really talented bunch of people, passionate people down at Will Kitty and around the stores around the country and stuff like that. And they've sort of taken that and sort of made it their own and taken it further, which is amazing. But
from your values.
Yeah, but from our values. But and I think that's quite, maybe touch on later. It's quite a cool kind of culture to have, that kind of creative within sort of an entrepreneurial sort of mindset. But I guess to answer your question, it's it's interesting. Like I was at a sustainability breakfast last year, and there's some big corporate banks there,
right?
The big ones that you would probably consider inverted commas bad, and I guess it's it's a matter of fact and degree. When you see the whites of the eyes of these people that are there talking to you about what they're doing, how genuine and authentic do you feel it is? Because on one hand, you're right, it's like most things in the world are bigger than Finisterre. And so for us to, we can create, we can move the needle as much as we can do, and that drives us every day, and we're growing and we're making more of a voice and affecting change, all that sort of stuff, more than we were when it was just me. So that's great progress. But, for it to really move the needle, there needs to be bigger change. So it's not for me to stop some of these bigger businesses coming to the table. But I guess it's really, you've got to really interrogate the kind of the authenticity to which they're doing that. And it's hard to say in the Carlsberg case, if you think that, what you think about that. I mean, you're working with them, you say? Or,
No.
Fine, no. So I don't know. I haven't seen that, but it's like, it's, if that, it's just, I suppose my example that I'd give is, Beyond Meat, I think it was, when they came out and they did that advert, or that was that viral clip that went around, and it showed people just walking out of Burger King who have eaten in America, and these guys are having 4 or 5 Burger King meals a week rather, have just had Beyond Meat or whatever, one of the alternative burgers, and they haven't noticed the difference. And they're like, these are the people that we need to be altering their life. And so if you can go in there, they're not interested in getting the vegans because they're already vegan, they're already doing it, or vegetarians are already doing it. But if you can get the masses of other people that aren't even aware of the things, and that's going to come from the voice of a big business, and maybe you get someone that has joined and wants to make that change within the business, and there's an agitator from within the business. Totally. I think that's really important, and you can't negate that or be too on your high horse about it. I think it's really important, but obviously you have to, on the other hand, take it with a degree of interrogation to the kind of the origins of the rationale for doing it.
Yeah, totally. And I think, ultimately, brands can have huge amount of impact if they've got expertise, capital, and scale in terms of distribution to make things, get outside of the echo chamber, which is super important.
Well, it's like when you go to those things, and maybe the event of the week was a bit of an example of that, but it's sort of feels, it's great to go there. You see some really, a lot of friends and familiar faces.
Talking about the Blue Earth Summit.
Yeah, and it was great. I thought I really enjoyed it and stuff. And it's but I'm always with all those events, what's the so what of it? What's the so what of it? Because, and it's maybe COP's the same. It's there's got to be a legacy. The event is just, and we did C7, and the event was to start. That's like throwing the gun. What actually the important stuff happens when you leave the event, leave the room, and so I think you need more people coming and getting involved and agitating it outside of the echo chamber.
Yeah, I think those partnerships are super interesting, and big organizations, I guess we have to invite them to work with partners who are going to make scale. I know Christmas advertisement is coming out at the moment. And, you know, we've got clients neighborly who have partnered with M&S this year, and they're going to have a huge amount of impact through that. And, you know, Carlsberg partnering with Project Seagrass is going to have a net positive impact. But I'm intrigued when you've got big organizations working with, you know, almost like foundational charity organizations. But you've got a number of partnerships that Finisterre has, you know, brought into the journey. Some brilliant ones. Obviously, RNLI. We've got the recent collab with Timex, which is sounded cool, wicked. How do you choose them? Why are you doing partnerships? And do you have like a screening process?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's like, there sort of has to be, you know, there's a few ways to approach it. I think, you know, the brand, the brand authenticity gives it permission to like partner with some really great, you know, businesses or charities or wherever it is, or organisations. And so for us, there's always got to be like a bit of a shared ethos, you know, like a shared ethos. But from a product point of view, it's, you know, for instance, we do quite a footwear collaborations. Ones with Palladium, which is launching in a week or so, and that's it's the first waterproof boot they've ever made, pretty much, from like a 1940s French brand. It's really cool.
But you also had like Vans last year, right?
So Vans, we've done Vans a couple of times now, and you know, talking about, you know, I talked to before about, you know, they never underestimate the power, you know, of like what a small committed bunch of people can achieve and stuff. And I think, you know, so that's quite a good mantra for anyone sort of agitating, whether within a business, with activist mode, mindset, whatever it is. But so with us, the Vans, we didn't make footwear, but they didn't necessarily have the fabric innovation or sustainability angle or that sort of thing. So we brought that, they brought their expert in footwear, and we made a shoe, and it was actually their most, you know, at the time, as very common, sustainable shoe they'd ever made, or boot they'd ever made, and range they'd ever made, and we kind of haloed that for them. So that's like Finisterre, you know, relatively small business on the cliffs of Wilkitty in Cornwall, with Vans, like, you know, multi whatever it is, I don't know how big it is,
ripple
but
effect,
it's huge.
It's wild.
It's huge. So it's like, so that's kind of like, you know, and so and with that, they then have since launched their own stuff, and it sold out quicker than their own line and all the rest of it. So it was quite a good example of what you can achieve, you know, from a collab and reach. And obviously it's good for us. We get some reach, we get some new eyes on the brand, and it helps us out. So there's definitely a screening process. And RNLI was a big one for me. Going to be on the crew for 20 years in St Agnes. I'm one of the helmers of the boat there, volunteer helm, and so that's personally a big one. This sort of shared ethos, love and respect for the sea, and they brought their amazing archive and their all that kind of rich romantic narrative that goes back 200 years, when you had men and women in Guernseys like paddling out in like the teeth of like a January gale in like 1860, whatever it was, or like, you know. And we're like there in all our dry suits. So it's like there's rich stuff then, and we then brought our knowledge of fabrics, of design, of aesthetic, of wool, that sort of stuff into the range. So there's always like this shared kind of, and you sort of like have to kind of look around it. And I think most importantly, you know, when you see it, the product or it tells a story that's sort of genuine and authentic, and you know, you can sort of tell those. I mean, some collabs are like, you know, like intentionally really disruptive. But the ones we sort of tend to do, they're interesting, they put your ears up. They're big flair moments for the brand, but you see the product and you kind of understand what each brand has brought to the collab.
It's so cool, man. I mean, I think we could talk about that for a long, long time. You know, the fact is, with the Shifted Narrative podcast, we're really interested in looking at, I guess, how things are changing in business, sustainability, regeneration, culture. You know, I read something about Selfridges with Project Earth, their initiative, their sustainability initiative. I think it was last month. Just ultimately talking about how they're going to reinvent retail. And, you know, I know that circular economy was a big part of that. I think they've set a target of 45% of their products and their transactions through their 4 stores. You know, coming from circular products by 2030, which is, you know, there's a time frame in there, which is great.
Yeah.
But one of the big things in that is clothing rental.
Yeah.
So I'm super interested to know, you know, are you seeing any behavior changes right now? Because, you know, when you have a first product costing 100 quid, and you're having to get people on board with that, like, you know, buy slow and buy products, which is going to, you know, ultimately last a long time. So you don't have to continuously replace that, which, by the way, you know, our parents, that's all they knew.
Yeah.
But there was a shift at some point when that changed. You know, to an area where people are on board with, you know, potentially spending a bit more of a premium on a product, especially people within the echo chamber that we're in.
Yeah.
To then going that one step further of actually don't own a product at all. I'm intrigued to know where you sit on that.
Yes, I mean we have. Well, you know, if you sort of think about that section of, you know, the circular business model, you know, that kind of quadrant, whatever it is, of the sort of, you know, the circle, which is, you know, what happens in the hands of the customer. So, you know, you build it with renewable or recycled or natural fibers as much as possible, minimal energy usage, and then you build it, you know, fit for purpose that, you know, lasts as long as possible, and then you help them extend that life in its hands. So in terms of trends, like we have through Reskinned, like a resale platform where you can trade in your old products. And so, you know, and that's been amazing. You know, that's been a real thing that has gone much bigger than we thought it was going to, more quickly. It's still a small part of the business, but, you know, the fact is there's a real appetite there for people. Because if you look at your, you know, say you got an insulation jacket from us, say 6-7 years ago, and it's like, you know, it needs a few bits of repair, and maybe you want a new colour, but you don't want to spend 100 quid on a new one, but you don't want to throw the old one away. You can send it in, get it fixed up, we'll then resell it, and then you can use that, you know, store voucher or whatever it is to put towards new ones. So that, you know, that's a big shift we're selling. We're not quite renting product yet. We've talked about it and haven't quite figured that out yet, actually, or haven't had sort of.
It's like logistically, it's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah, the capacity to figure it out is hard, but, you know, it's on our radar, I suppose. But yeah, so you are definitely seeing, and we've had our lived and love repair service going for over like 10 or 12 years. You know, we've had it in Will Kitty, that's in Bristol store, and, you know, that's been something that we've done for a long time now. And, you know, it's you know, all and you get the products back. They've got little, you know, different, because often the fabric that the product was made of has gone out of use. So you get a little blue patch on a red jacket, and it looks like a little plaster or badge or whatever it is. It's kind of cool. And so it's we encourage that a lot, actually. So, and that's been a busier part of the business, for sure. So that's probably an encouraging maybe shift that you're seeing in sort of consumer behaviour.
Yeah, totally. And I could have told you that would have flown, because I think the first Finisterre product I ever owned was like within, I think, a month of Facebook Marketplace coming out. I remember wanting a jacket, being completely broke as a student. And didn't know you back then. And I had Finisterre like saved as a search in Facebook Marketplace, and some pretty hotshot banker person bought a green Nimbus jacket. Still wear it. I got some of the guys in the room still wear it on a daily basis. And I managed to pick it up for about 60 quid less. Amazing, and I think he'd worn it about 3 times. Great. And I was just like, go on.
Yeah. So it's good. I think that, I love that. I love that story. And I think that's something to kind of, you know, lean into as well.
This is way before you had, I think you've got what, like 9 or 10 stores now?
10, yeah.
10 stores, you know, like this was, around the time the Edges of Sanity, which I'm a huge fan of, as one of the very, very cool brand marketing pieces of content that you put out was out. There was product which would basically sell out very quickly because you weren't having huge stocks of it. Seeing another Finisterre person out in the wild wasn't as common now, because it just shows the amount of growth you've done in the last kind of 8 years or so. It's been wild. But when you did see somebody wearing the Finisterre logo, it would be like that nod.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah,
And that was super cool, you know. And you still have that, by the way, which is so epic.
Yeah, I love that. And it's always, I remember like the first time, my sister were at a show and like we didn't. It was that we walked past someone that wasn't like my mum, my neighbour, one of my family wearing like something that, like a product, and you knew that everything had gone out there and that a transaction happened that hasn't been a favour, you know.
Totally.
And someone's bought that and it's like, you just put like cash out, but you look at it. And so, yeah, I think, and people have said to me, like, they'll be on a train and they'll be, oh yeah, this person stopped me and asked me about this jacket. And, you know, it's awkward enough asking someone, am I on the right train, let alone talking about what they're wearing. So I think that happens quite a lot, which is a really sort of, it's kind of a sort of privileged and lovely thing that people do around the brand. Actually, there's a lot of love for what we've created, and which I really appreciate.
Yeah, I'm. You know, we talked about echo chamber just a second ago, but when we're looking at Selfridges, which you know you'd arguably see that they're installing that kind of behaviour change mindset, that initiative, because you've quite literally got rental sites which are like the Vinted of the world, like who are smashing it right now, and they're kind of saying, well, we need a piece of this, and you know, ultimately you've got a privileged customer often buying a product from Finisterre because it has a premium price tag in there. When we're talking about the values, the things that you stand for, your purpose, but we're only talking to a small segment of, you know, middle class, often white middle class people, how do we break out of that?
Well, there's quite a few sort of things to unpick in that. So, yeah, I mean, I think like, I guess what we can do. Well, there's two things. Firstly, the value proposition of the product, so what it costs. Yeah, so you know, for us, like you have a supply chain and you have like a bunch of costs on every step of the supply chain to get that product into your warehouse, wherever it is, send it out to a customer or store, whatever it is. So that is a factor. And with us, we've always been like, you know, since day one, as transparent as possibly can, as honest as we possibly can in terms of the business and what we're doing and our relationships. The best fabrics we possibly can, taking into account sustainability and, you know, natural fibers or traceability, that sort of thing. So, you know, with that, that's already more complicated than just going to a manufacturer you haven't met, you haven't seen, you don't know where they are, and just going, make this, and I want this price, and get it back to me in 6 months' time. So already there's more complications, and you know, with complexity comes, you know, more price. But I think what we put out there, our kind of remit is to put out there the best product we possibly can at the fairest price to the customer. And I wouldn't actually always say that that word is privileged. I'm not sure that's like a very it's a bit of a misleading word.
It is a misleading word. It is a misleading word, but you know.
I think you know, it is have to be able to afford some products. So we put it out there, and it's not for me to say whether you know, you should be buying from Finisterre or getting a 25 quid fleece from Primark. That's not where we are. No. We can just do what we can. Yeah. Tell people about why we're doing it, and tell people about what we've done and why we've done it, and what's gone into making that product what it is. And hopefully this is a product you have for like, you know, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is. We can help you repair it, recycle it, we can trade it in, all that sort of stuff. You know, you can phone us up and speak to us about it. But it's that has to also, what often doesn't get talked about in these kind of situations is also there's also a financial sustainability from a business point of view, because if you're not, you know, and we've you know, I would argue that we have had serious economics from a business point of view because we've done that. Yeah. And we have had to kind of, you know, sacrifice some of our, you know, economics within the business to do the right thing and to try and get that as affordable as we can to the customer. And so, you know, you've got to, and you know, but you know, if you're not financially sustainable as a business, none of this exists. And
without a margin, you have no mission, right?
And so you've got, you know, I think, you know, people have to be aware that there's also that side of it that plays into it. So, you know, our thing is the best possible product that's fit for purpose at the best price we can do it at. And I think it's really fair value for everything that goes into what we do.
Yeah, and I totally agree on that. I think that when we are ultimately communicating a very tricky subject.
So there's the second part of the question that I haven't answered.
That's cool.
About how you break out of that sort of the diversity within that, and maybe that is it's a rental model, it's a different business model, it's like could you a different way of owning product basically, so maybe that opens up more accessibility to a bunch of people. I mean, from a marketing point of view, like diversity and inclusion is we've been doing that for a while now, and it's something that even before some of the events, these big events in the last few years, it's always been a fair brand. And we've launched Foundation, which is all about equal access to the ocean, and the whole idea is that I'm white, middle class, I don't really have any worries in the world on a daily basis compared to a lot of people. So, but including going to the sea, which for me is one of the best things that I'm lucky to do, and it's a beautiful thing that I can do. And so I don't have any barriers to that, but the Foundation is all about realizing that actually accessing the ocean, a lot of people in this country have massive barriers to.
Totally.
It could be religious, socioeconomic, it could be cultural, it could be body conscious, whatever it is, confidence, whatever it is. So the Foundation is set up for that. And then we raise money. We don't do Black Friday, we do Blue Friday, we don't discount. And every sale that's made over that period, we donate amount of money from the sale that goes to the Foundation, and then that is used to help access the ocean. So I said a lot of things are bigger than Finisterre, but what can we do in our own space and create as much ripple effect and change as possible? And we had the Sea Suit project, the Wetsuit project, all these great projects that are really kind of breaking out of, I think, the mold we've just described.
And I think the thing that stands out for me that you didn't mention there was you do activations like events in your shops that you've now got 10 of, which is just mad. I'm so stoked to see that growth, man, honestly. But in Bristol, I remember the team and we went down to like a placard making event in the store after hours with some of your team. Like, you're standing for stuff which is way bigger than just this little surf brand.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like, it can be really daunting in one stage, because all these things are so much bigger than many of us are. But also the idea that you can, as the group of individuals or organisation or school or whatever it is that you are, can really have that voice, and if you believe in it, you can drive change. So if that's activism, for me, that's always, I love the idea of the brand. I don't it's not, to me, being totally honest, it's not really important whether you buy from Finisterre. It's like, if the brand can have effect on you, that means that you can go and change something, lead a better life, do something a bit different from having interacted with what we do, then I love that. Yeah,
love it, man. Yeah. So, like, as a founder of this business, which is about to turn 20, just got to remind you of that one. The sea being so close to the office, you creating this culture that a workplace that you want to live in, and ultimate escape being the outdoors. Burnout, stress is surely not prevalent, right?
I mean, it's like, it's kind of, I suppose, it's lovely having these conversations, because I can kind of come up and be kind of quite free in the thinking and the ideas and stuff. But, behind, down at Will Kitty and around the stores, there's a bunch of amazing people working super hard to, and, behind the brand and all the emotional big stuff is like there has to be sort of like a business working, range reviews, sign-offs, budgets, all the stuff. So there's always Yeah, it's super. It is very stressful at times, but I think the team have got real drive and believe in what we're doing, and it's that belief that kind of carries you through those challenging times. That resilience I've talked about already, but I think so it is tough, and but I've got amazing support of people around me. Getting to see when I can, and I think I used to sort of think of that skiving off, but actually that's more. I need to do that. It's just part of my life, and I'm better for it. And I come back, so it's just what you need to do. So I'm very lucky in many ways. But also it's been, I suppose it's 20 years old, and there was, nearly probably like 10 years ago or so, it was pretty close to breaking me.
You just there's times where
it's tough times. Yeah, you're constantly running out of money. You're getting a hard time left, right, and centre. People shooting you down. All the rest of it. But it's definitely been some. But the business is more stable than it was. Still got challenges like every day. Board meeting on Monday. There's all kinds of things going on in the business, and that never goes away. But I think if you know that, you learn to also really make sure that you're never going to get to the bottom of the list and go, it's all sorted now. It's always the next thing that's around the corner. So you've got to, as I said at the start of the interview or chat, you've got to make sure you enjoy those peaks when they come, because and celebrate them with with the teams and stuff like that. But and
what about talent? Because obviously you're in this little corner of the UK which is becoming a lot more connected, but. Certainly hasn't always been connected, and there's a talent war going on all over the country. I'm sure you've got people who are massively dedicated to surfing and the brand of Finisterre, but when you are trying to scale a business, it's a good question actually. Is it hard? Yeah,
it is hard. I mean, I think when it started out, it was just me, and then it was sort of mid-late 20s guys that came down, and we would go surfing, go out for beers, and we did a bit, it was all with thick as thieves sort of thing. That was a really special time actually.
Naivety is like bliss, right?
And then it's sort of then it became something, and we kind of believed in it more and more, and it grew, and so I guess when you have people that have got families, or they're embedded in a city, or say for instance London, it is hard. I mean, you might be lucky, and you might find someone that wants to come and live that life. But it's definitely been, I think, building a brand at Wheel Kitty where we are in Stagness is always that kind of depth of brand, and having somewhere where you can walk out and you really believe you've been down there, you really believing what. We are living and breathing what we say we're doing. And that's really important for me. And that authenticity, and having that baked into everything we do. So, don't start work 10 o'clock on a Tuesday and you go for a surf or swim, or spend time near the sea to remind ourselves of our purpose. But
have you got one question that you always ask in a job interview when you've been hiring people?
I didn't realise I did do, but apparently I always ask people if they surf or not. And I didn't understand this new girl started the other day. So and so he asked me in a job interview whether I didn't remember that. But anyway, so maybe that was it. But I think it's so we got. I suppose to answer the question, we got a really talented bunch, and they can be more remote now than they used to be, and we're definitely more locationally fluid than we. Snagness our spiritual home are where everyone is, majority of people are, but we have people in Bristol, we have people in London. It's more locationally fluid than it used to be, but it can be a challenge to answer your question. It can be a challenge, and particularly probably looking at the scale. We need to kind of continue to track that talent. But
So what's the vision for the future, Tom?
Well, it's kind of it's. It is that still we're still that startup mentality, which is we just feels like we're getting going on everything, whether it's more circularity in our products, all our wetsuits have been plant-based Ulex natural rubber-based for quite a long time now, or for a few years at least now, whether it's B Corey certification, whether it's going to the US, lots of exciting things going on, but it's we're still, you know, it's the energy and momentum is very much there in the business and the brand. And I think, you know, film as well. I'm interested in getting more into film and stuff. So lots of exciting stuff going on, and we're ambitious about where we're going to go and the journey we're on, which is really exciting. And I think that's hopefully an exciting thing for our community, our customers, and people that work at Finisterre to be part of.
Watch this space, hey?
Yeah. Watch this space. Yeah, continue to watch this space. Yeah.
So to end, I always ask some quick fire questions.
Yeah, sure.
And we'll kick off. What are you listening to when you're going for a surf, or you're trying to unblock a big business hurdle? What music you listen to?
Oh my god, my Spotify list is like 1,000 songs. There's no playlist. So, but if I'm concentrating, if I had to do it at work, I'd be Lord of the Rings soundtrack. I love that. I feel like I'm doing something like big and going towards Mordor. Yeah, I'm going towards Mordor, whatever. And,
get down to
dodging
the beach.
The Dark Riders, whatever. So that I don't know. I always listen to that actually. I'm doing really, really concentrated work. Anything really. Nothing. That'd be my kind of go-to concentrated music. Yeah.
Getting down to the beach and maybe seeing that the waves aren't as big as maybe you're anticipating.
Yeah, or our journey as a brand, and the little business going up against the big dark forces of capitalism or consumerism. I don't know. So it's on a journey. We're on a journey. Everyone's on a journey, and this is our journey. So maybe that resonates.
Favorite book or podcast?
Favorite book is actually favorite podcast. I've been listening a lot to Sam Harris. Sam Harris. They're quite cool. That I've got young kids, so there's that little podcast mini clip about the last time you do stuff. You listen to that?
I haven't listened to that.
So he talks quite a lot about you do everything for a finite amount of time in your life,
right?
No matter what it is. And so he's talking about him having young kids, and when his daughter used to say aminal all the time, and then suddenly she starts saying animal, but he doesn't remember the last time she said aminal.
Yeah. Or
when you go into your kids in the night and you're like exhausted, tired, and it's the third time you've been up and you've got to work in like literally half an hour, and you're like, oh man, but just like, they just need you for that time, and you give them a cuddle and you put them back down again. And, my 7-year-old doesn't do that anymore. I don't remember the last time he did that. And so it's all about really paying attention to the now.
Yeah.
And he also talks about, this guy Sam Harris talks about last time he doesn't ski anymore because he's got bad knees. But last time he went skiing, he does remember the last run he did because he didn't know it's going to be the last run. So it's all about, and it goes into sort of meditation and mindfulness and stuff like that, but it's all about, and you've got elderly parents or, friends going, coming, like life has, it's all about really trying to, and it's obviously easier to talk about it than actually do it, but be in the moment and try and really pay attention to the moment you're in, because you don't know when it's the last time you're going to be there. Yeah, be it good or bad. So yeah, it's kind of, so that's a cool, I listen to that quite a lot.
And what about if you could work with any brand ever?
Oh, that's a great question. Work with any brand ever. I mean, I think, there's...
Or a brand that you're just totally inspired by.
I mean, Patagonia has always been a brand we know.
Yeah. I've
met Yvonne, I've known a few of those guys quite well now, and they're, what they're doing and have done as a brand, leading the way in the industry, I think is obviously goes without saying, is phenomenal. So that's a brand we've always looked up to, and I personally have. And I guess other brands that I'm quite into exploring content brands, doing content hookups. So whether that's telling stories through film about ocean activism or, we're pretty close to the Blue Planet guys, that sort of thing. I think I love the idea of supporting film and content that sort of tells a story.
Love that.
Yeah, so, I mean, the brand Finisterre has always been about storytelling, so I've always liked the idea of leaning more into storytelling. So, and there might be some stuff happening that I can't tell you about, but that's something I'm exploring quite a lot right now.
I love it. So Tom, legend, thank you so much. Let's go over and speak to a few hundred people about power of brand. But before we go, you have one word to respond to this. I recently found out that last year on Black Friday, Boohoo Man did 100% discount on their products for Black Friday. How does that work? Don't know. Give me one word that you think reacts to that.
Excess.
Mic drop. See you later. Cheers, dude.
Cheers, man. Thank you. It's okay.
Love it. I had to put on my Finisterre jacket for this roundup. Here it is. I remember when Facebook Marketplace launched, I was obsessed by seeing if anything Finisterre would pop up for sale. And one day, this green Nimbus jacket came online. I think it was about February, and it was bought for a Christmas present for the guy that was selling it because it was too small for them. I mean, funnily enough, the guy was in central London, and I think that if he knew the Finisterre methodology and ethos, he could probably send it back to them, but he didn't have the gift receipt. And ultimately, I'm sure they would have just swapped it anyway. But fortunately for me, I bagged a deal, especially when I was setting up Enviro. I didn't have any money. Still not sure if I've got that much money. But anyway, it's been on a lot of adventures since. And yeah, it just stands for something, doesn't it, wearing a Finisterre jacket? And I'm rambling, but it's most likely due to the fact that I just had such an interesting conversation with the head honcho of a brand which is just very close to my heart. And one that really shows the power of what can be done when you've got a vision and a dream. And the southwest of England has some ridiculously passionate people when it comes to business and purpose. But it seems as soon as you cross that border into Cornwall, you're into this league of passion and purpose that's just of a different level. And the approach to drive community, to drive great lasting products, to drive reputation, to build things that last is just in the blood of the people who live down there. And Finisterre as a brand truly reflects this. And similar to the Wheel Kitty office neighbours just above the cliffs of St Agnes is another organisation close to my heart, Surfers Against Sewage. They're literally opposite in offices, and there just must be something in the water there, because both of these organisations have just got this ability to punch far above their weight, scaling nationally and internationally, to grow communities that live and breathe their purpose and existence. And it just really, to me, shows the power of brand and purpose and the power of brand marketing and their approach to that. And so talking about that, it went viral straight after this podcast through an event on the power of brand to build future sustainable businesses. I think that was the title. And the key lessons that we learned at this event, which mirror this episode that we've just had, is that you've got to believe in your purpose and stay single-minded no matter what pressure comes away on your journey. And Tom's got some great stories there. You've got to develop proper foundational plans, sustainability plans, know what you want to do from the get-go, but 7 out of 10 is good enough. Don't wait to start. And something from the event, which I thought was really cool, is just take photos of the early days from the brand and its roots, because it's amazing how it stays and remains as you kind of go deeper into your journey, which Finisterre are now 20 years into. So thank you, Tom. It's been an incredible episode, and it's great to hang out as always. And to listeners, thank you for listening. We have some brilliant episodes launching in the next few weeks, and really appreciate you subscribing. Really keen to hear your thoughts on how I can personally improve my interviewing as well. Get in touch in LinkedIn, and if you've got any suggestions for people to interview in the business and sustainability space, definitely get in touch. Over and out, Joss.